Awesome. Sorry about that. Ladies and gentle people, thanks for tuning in tonight. We've got another interesting discussion slash debate for tonight. We have Skylar Fiction and Justin Wilson, and we're asking, is racism a significant problem in the U.S.? Now, we got Skylar going with the affirmative, and Justin is taking the negative, so we're going to let Skylar go first. But first of all, if you is this your first time here? This is a non-partisan channel. We like to let everybody have a voice here and give kind of an even playing field for people to have discussions and debates and on topics from religion to politics, you name it. If you'd like to be on Modern Day Debate, you can send us an email at moderndaydebate@gmail.com or Converse Contender at gmail.com. I'll be in the live chat, so if you need anything out of me, let me know. And tag me with any questions that you have for the Q&A portion at the end. If you have a super chat, I'll push it to the top of the list. All right, so everybody in the live chat, please let me know if there's any audio issues. With that, we're going to go into 5-minute openings. I'm not going to be strict on that, so if we need to go a little bit longer, not a problem. Then we're going to jump straight into the open discussion. So with that, Skylar, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm Skylar Fiction. I really appreciate being here tonight with you folks. Racism is a very important issue to me for a lot of reasons. One being, I don't like racist. Racism is an awful plague in our world. And also because it directly affects myself and my family. I'm married to a black woman. I have 2 children with my wife. During this debate, I'm going to go over a lot of different pieces of information. Now, I could start by giving you anecdotal evidence, like talking about all the racism that my wife and I have experienced, not only from white people, but also from black people, because racism doesn't care in that sense, right? Every race can be racist. And I could tell you about all the awful things that have happened, right? But I don't think that's going to be convincing. I could tell you how I've had my black child followed around grocery stores and convenience stores. I could tell you about how when I go out to restaurants, depending on the amount of black people at my table, the quality of service goes down. I can talk about times I've heard people throw the N-word around at us. But what I'd rather do is just talk about some of the data. But I have a favorite quote that I kind of like. Recently I read the book Animal Farm, and it's really gotten me thinking. It's a great book by George Orwell, if you're not familiar with it. And it's got a lot of deeper meanings than just about government and politics. And there's this quote that says, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And that's what I think kind of the mantra of our country is, where I think on paper, we like to think that we've moved past this. But I think we've still got quite a bit of issues to talk about. I mean, if we have things like neo-Nazis in our streets now, protesting, causing violence. But you know what? Let me just get into the data, because I think this is really the crux of the argument. Let's talk about my first study, which is from the Sentencing Project. An extensive document of racial bias in our criminal justice system. Studies seem to indicate about 61 to 80% of black overrepresentation in prisons can be explained by higher black crime rates, with the unexplained portion largely attributed to racial bias. Remember, the factors that led to disproportionate criminality amongst black Americans are also in large part a product of racial bias. Underfunded public programs, rendering generational poverty, and a myriad of other factors. But let's talk about Ferguson. They did a study in Ferguson. The study was done by the United States Department of Justice. And between 2012 and 2014, black people in Ferguson accounted for 85% of vehicle stops, 90% of the citations, and 93% of the arrests, despite being comprised of 67% of the population. Blacks were more than twice as likely as whites to be searched after traffic stops, even after controlling for related variables though they did prove to be 26% likely to be in possession of illegal drugs or weapons. So they are 26% likely to have drugs and weapons, but overall searched more. Between 2011 and 13, blacks also received 90% of the jaywalking tickets. And 94% of tickets are failure to comply. The Justice Department also found that racial discrepancy for speeding tickets increased dramatically when researchers looked at tickets based only on an officer's word versus tickets based on objective evidence such as radar. Black people facing similar low-level charges as white people were 68% less likely to see those charges dismissed in court, and more than 90% of the arrest warrants stemming from failure to pay, failure to appeal were issued for black people. Let's see here. Where's the ones I want to go to? Let's go to this one. This is a study from the American Psychological Association. Photos, where's this? Is this the right one? Hold on a second, guys. I want to make sure I got the right one up here. Oh, no, this is the one I want. Students and police officers participated in tests to determine the levels of racial bias and perception of innocence. Black boys as young as 10 are more likely to be considered criminal or untrustworthy and more likely to face police violence. Police officers were tested on the dehumanization of blacks by comparing people of different races to animal groups. Police who engaged in higher levels of dehumanization were more likely to use violence against blacks. This is another paper I have. This is from the University of Alabama, I believe. Results from 3 separate studies on perception and racial bias show people have a tendency to perceive black men as larger and more threatening than similarly shaped white men, or similarly sized white men, I should say. Here's a report on jury selection. This one is from... This is from Michigan State University College of Law. Between 1990 and 2010, state prosecutors struck about 53% of black people eligible for juries in criminal cases, opposed to 26% of white people. The study's author testified the odds of this taking place in a race-neutral context were about 1 in 10 trillion. After accounting for factors prosecutors selected for which to tend correlate, after accounting for factors prosecutors selected for which led to tend to correlate with race, black people were still struck twice as often. North Carolina state legislators had previously passed a law stating death penalty defendants who could demonstrate racial bias in their jury selection could have their sentences changed to life without parole. The legislature later repealed the law. What else we got here? And by the way, big shout out to a friend of mine, Kirby, because he gave me a lot of fun information and kind of gave me a lot of the links in this information here. This is from West Virginia University again. In the study, 2 groups of mock jurors were given a collection of race-neutral evidence from an armed robbery, with one group alleged perpetrator being shown to be light-skinned and the other dark-skinned. Jurors were significantly more likely to evaluate ambiguous race-neutral evidence against. Jurors were significantly more likely to evaluate ambiguous race-neutral evidence against the dark-skinned suspect as incriminating, and more likely to find the dark-skinned suspect guilty. Let's see here. There's a lot of stuff I have here. Oh, here. This is from the ACLU. No, let me make sure this is the ACLU. I'll wrap this up. I have so many studies I could use, but this is ACLU. The ACLU reported reviews 5 months of data from DC police stops and searches by race and outcome. The black population of DC is 25% greater than the white population, but black people were 410% more likely to be stopped by the police than white people. This disparity increases to 1,465% for stops, which led to no warning ticket or arrest, and 3,690% for searches, which led to no warning, ticket, or arrest. The data indicates that disproportionate stopping and searching of blacks in the DC area extended massively beyond the disproportionate rate of criminality. An analysis of 4.5 traffic stops in North Carolina shows blacks and Latinos were more likely to be searched than whites, 5.4% to 3.1% for whites, 5.4% for blacks, despite the searches of white motorists were the most likely to reveal contraband. Now, I have more studies and things we can kind of go into. I don't want to, I guess I've already kind of bombarded you with a ton of them. But there is certainly a lot of evidence to show that we have problems in our country, especially with our criminal justice system and our police. I don't believe all police are racist. I think there are tons of great people out there who aren't racist at all. I think there's a lot of, I think most probably white and black people aren't racist, right? But I think we need to be honest about the reality we live in. And I can tell you this from firsthand experience. I'm a big white dude, and it makes me sick to my stomach that when I hear other white people come up to me and talk bad about black people because they think that I don't have any connection to them, right? And this happens so often that has really made me passionate about this subject. Well, anyways, that's my opening. I really appreciate it. Sorry that it went a little long, but I did have a lot of information to give.
All right, not a problem. Thanks so much for that, Skylar. We're going to go over to Justin Wilson for his 5-minute opening, but I want to first say, if you have a question for the Q&A, please tag me and Not Modern Day Debate. Tag me at Converse Contender. You'll see me in the live chat. And with that, Justin, take it away.
Okay, well, I thank Skylar for bringing all those stats here. But one thing I would like to say is that, like, a lot of times stats become very confusing when there's not enough context, backed up to it. And even though he did bring some context that says, blacks sometimes being more likely to have contraband in their car, that does add some context to what I was going to explain. So the thing that is frequently said by people of my position is that blacks make up 13% of the population, but commit more than 50% of the murder or the crime, not just crime in general, but murder, which is very serious. You just can't say that, okay, well, people are just being arrested for petty crimes. I'm talking about murder. So with that in mind, it makes sense that black people will be suspect of a crime more likely. If someone has shot someone, you're going to be searched for, and people are going to look for descriptors. And of course, they're going to say a black guy did it, or this black man ran this way with this shirt, with that pants, and more black people are therefore going to be a suspect of a crime. So it makes sense that black people will be more likely to be pretty much, I would say, I guess, profiled or racially profiled, because if a black person did it, you're going to be profiling black men. So it makes sense that they would be more likely stopped on the highway, stopped on the streets, and then checked. And then another thing, I found that black people are 10 times more likely to resist arrest than white people, which means that black people will find themselves getting in trouble and then eventually arrested for petty things that they didn't even have to go to jail for. So they escalate things, far more. And that's a result of, I guess, this hate. Well, not say hate, but this resentment because of slavery, Jim Crow, and then also this idea that white people hate them so much, especially the cops. So they have this animosity against any cop. It's a blind animosity. And what often happens is that they continue to resist arrest on the suspicion that these cops are racist, and the cops, they cannot just let the person go just because, the person says, get off of me. No, they have to fulfill their duty in arresting the person if that person actually did something illegal, such as maybe push the cop or, start punching at him or something like that. So, yeah, it makes sense that we will see higher rates of black people being arrested because of the murder, and then on top of that, resisting arrest. And also, because of drugs in our community, we are often, I guess, searched for in our community. There's more cops patrolling our area. because of the crime there. So, of course, there's going to be less cops in the suburban areas and more cops in urban areas. So that's why the rates of arrest and stops are far more higher. Now, when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, Black people can be just as great as any race. It doesn't matter. We can be as, I would say, highly elevated in the financial world as our Jewish brethren. But what happens is we have this idea of this invisible ceiling that is stopping us, which we believe is racism, but it's not there. It's in our heads, but it is not really there. And even if it is there, it is so thin that a child can break through it. In fact, like Black immigrants from Africa that come over to this country, they are far more successful than any Blacks. In fact, you find like Nigerians and so on, they dominate, the medical field. They pretty much are the wealthiest, even wealthier than white people. Asians are wealthier than white people. But we don't accuse them of Asian supremacy or Nigerian supremacy. No, we don't really care about that. But the issue is that we think that being Black stops you from being successful. No, it doesn't. Having a victim mindset makes you a loser at the beginning, or just throughout the time. If you really believe that, you're going to limit yourself no matter what. So instead of Black people deciding to take leadership positions, we often are happy with just being in servile positions, such as maybe being a basketball player but not being the owner of a team, or maybe being a high-end employee making millions, but we can actually be a billionaire by being the CEO. There's so many things that we don't do as a culture. We choose not to be on the top as a culture. We stay as a servile culture. So that's what it is. Our cultural choices and also our belief that there's so much racism, that is what's really stopping us now, today. Maybe we could make the case that racism was a big deal back in Jim Crow time, but not today. We can't use that same argument now. So I'll rest my case there.
All right. Thanks so much for that, Justin. We will jump into the open discussion, and we are going to do a Q&A at the end, as I mentioned earlier. If you got a question, tag me with it. Super chats will be pushed to the top of the list. So if you want to make sure your question gets answered, there's almost 300 people watching now. You can send it in a super chat. And thanks so much for bearing with us. Hey, also, I'm sorry, one more thing. Let's keep it positive in the live chat. I mean, you can debate amongst yourselves, but let's try to stick to the issues and no character tags. And also, don't spam the chat, please, because I'll have to put it on slow-mo. Yeah. All right. Open chat, guys.
Sure. I wanted to say, I think you might have misheard me, because actually my data said that Blacks were 26% less likely to possess illegal guns, weapons, and drugs.
Okay.
Yet they were being accounted for 85% of the vehicle stops, 90% of the citations, and 93% of all arrests. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit about is, now you were talking about drugs, which whites, this is statistically, they've done studies on this. Whites and Blacks use drugs at the same rate, but yet the arrest record for Blacks is much higher. Mm-hmm. So you certainly have targeting there. I found also, and I'll let you, one more thing I noticed that you said I thought was interesting. You started talking about high Black murder rates, right? Mm-hmm. How many of those murder rates were gang members?
I can't say right now in my head. I don't have a big list of that. I don't know.
Well, the reason I'd ask is, why would you choose to refer to the folks as Black folks or Black people instead of gang members? Or why not refer to them as men opposed to women? Why choose to particularly say it's the blackness, the blackness that is responsible, in a sense, for the high murder rate?
No, I'm just saying black people are doing the crime. So when they're taking tally marks of the suspects or the people who committed the crime, they have to say black. So that explains why they're maybe looking for black suspects. If a black man actually murdered someone and ran, and now they're looking for that black man that is described.
Yeah, but that's not what the data says, though. The data says they're less likely here to find weapons, which weapons kill people, right? You would have to. Do you have some kind of data that shows the correlation between the high murder rate and searching vehicles? Like, do you have any data for that?
Well, sure. I mean, what's funny is that Black Lives Matter, they posted they posted the FBI stats right here, which they thought it was a good thing. They thought that this actually made, I guess, black people look good. How do I share?
Oh, I'm not talking about the actual. I know you've already articulated that it's a higher murder rate. I'll grant you that. What I'm saying is, can you connect that to the amount of stops that police officers do on black men? Because that's how you're correlating. You're saying they stop black men more because there's more murder. And my point is like, can you actually correlate that with the data?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that it makes sense that if you're looking for a black, I guess, murderer, a person who's suspected of homicide, you're going to be searching more black men because they're supposed to be out scouting for it. Especially if someone, did a drive-by and then someone said, hey, he had this car and he had that, license plate. They're going to be searching for all those cars.
Sure, I hear you rationalize it, but do you have actually anything that actually, like a study that connects that? Because you're just kind of giving your opinion on why you think like black people get pulled over more. Like how many people were murdered last year?
I don't know exactly how many people were murdered.
Okay, and once again, I go back to why did you just refer to them as men? Why would you say that isn't a situation with just men, right? Why do you refer to them as black is the issue?
Well, because that's the point. The fact that
they're men too, right?
Well, black men. So are we arguing whether it should be black men versus women?
No. What I'm pointing out is that you're kind of showing like a form of racism in and of itself right now, right? By choosing to equate the murder rate as if it's the blackness, right? Opposed to being men or gang members, right? You choose to actually reflect it as like, why is it? Well, answer this. Why is it that black men have higher murder rates or kill more people? What was the number you gave?
They represent more than 50%, like 53% actually.
Okay. And how many of those are gang members?
Well, I don't know, but
don't you think it's more of a problem with gangs than it is probably with black men?
That doesn't move the problem, because if there's more gangs in the black community, we still have a problem.
Yeah, but it's not a race issue. It's a gang issue.
Well, it still will be a race issue if it's special to the black community. Mm. I mean, gangs. I mean, white people have the opportunity to have gangs as well, and if they're not producing the same murder rate, if they're not producing the same murder rate, then you have to.
Have you looked at it? Have you looked to see if white gangs kill the same amount as black gangs?
No. Well, if you look at,
you haven't.
Well, if you look at the rate of white people, period, it will account for both white gangs or just non-white gang members.
Sure. So, now, this debate is about, is there racism in America, right? Not the high crime statistics of black people.
Well, this is connected to it because you have to explain why black people are being arrested so much. Why are their communities being patrolled so much? And if crime has something to do with it, then this would be part of the reason.
Sure. Yeah. But so that's what I'm saying. The number of murders, what you're talking about, isn't going to connect you for why they're getting arrested. What it is, it's the drug war. That's why. And also, let me give you another piece of data here. So this is from where's the judges? So this is a study from, let me pull up the study, give you what it exactly is from. It's from the Demographic Differences, United States Sentence Commission. So this is from the government. Extensive multivariate regression analysis of extensive multivariate regression analysis indicated black male offenders received 19.1% longer federal sentences than similarly situated white offenders. Mm-hmm. The disparity seemed to stem mostly from that black, let's see here. What else we got here? So, I mean, that's a key one right there. How would you explain that? Why is it that judges give black folks longer sentencing when for the same crimes white folks commit?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I have to look at everything case by case. I mean, because some states, I'm not sure if we're comparing state to state or maybe same judge versus another judge. But I could accept that maybe it's racism. I could accept that. But to the larger degree that it's stopping the black community from being successful, yeah, I wouldn't say it's
well, that's not what I'm saying. Well, I'm not making it stops the black community from being successful. That's not the title of the debate. Here's another one. Does appearance matter? There was another study here. Photos of capital inmates shown to entry-level criminal justice students for them to evaluate the trustworthy of their faces. This is a study that students rated pictures of light-skinned inmates as more trustworthy when they preceded pictures of dark-skinned inmates. Most studies of participants were 79.9% were white, but the study predicted that this wasn't a major factor. When controlling for race, no statistically significant result was found. This suggests that each race, white and non-white, were consistent in their rating outcomes. Prior research had found similar results where whites and light-skinned blacks are likely to share similar attitudes towards darker-skinned blacks.
Okay, well, that is because of an image problem. We create an image of the black community as criminals, thugs, gangsters, all kinds of stuff, thieves, and that contributes to our image, especially if we're darker or lighter. If you see a certain group of people committing a crime, your mind, your brain by itself, without you thinking, it's going to take a tally mark. It's going to, consider statistics, and you're going to start saying, okay, this kind of person does this a lot, and you
are
just
light-skinned black people not black people?
I'm sorry.
Are light-skinned black people not black people? Because they said that light-skinned black people, they don't view the same way as darker-skinned black people. I'm sorry, I hate to tell you this, white people view a light-skinned or black skin, you're still black. They're still going to look at you as a black person.
No, it's not the same.
But why is it different? Because of race, right? Because they perceive white lighter-skinned black people as being more like them.
Yeah, but see, there's a reason for that. If we commit certain crimes or we do certain things, then there would be things that would be associated to our skin. So if you look at, for example, a Mexican, you may think about tacos. You may think about Taco Bell.
That's some racist ass shit you just said right there.
Well, okay, so do Mexicans?
Wait, could you imagine if I had said some kind of stereotypical thing that people say black people eat right now, how racist that shit would come off?
Well, you're looking at me. You assume I'm oppressed?
Huh? I don't assume racism and oppression. I don't assume people are oppressed. I know there is racism. I don't know if you personally. I'm happy that you're in a situation where you don't feel racism is a problem. That's a good thing. But I'm sorry that your personal experience doesn't match the experience of most people.
Well, okay. So then you already created something such as most people. So if I said something such as most Mexicans eat Mexican food, I can do the same thing about black people. It's not necessarily
No, I think you got a serious problem there, man. That's not the same. Most people statistically, right? What's going on in the country? It's like you're denying what's happening in our country right now. Like people are upset. Like I'm showing you through data our criminal justice system and what's going on. And what you're doing is you can only point to one number, the murder rate. You just keep pointing to this murder thing, right? Which isn't really have to do with black. It has to do with gangs and poverty, right?
No,
but you want to associate it with blackness and be like, well, and the problem is it's ignorance, right? And what you're doing is continuing to spread the racist ignorance and saying, hey, you should be afraid of black people because black people commit more crime. They commit more murder. But really, it's not about black people and murder. It's about gangs and gang violence brought on by our drug war.
Okay, so did you give me numbers of how many of these guys were gang members?
Would you like me to pull it up here?
Yeah, why did you assume?
Because if you looked at gun numbers, I'll give you an example, right? So one of the things that people oftentimes, you're a conservative is what I've heard, right? I'm sure you're pro-gun. I'm a pretty pro-gun guy, right? People will oftentimes look at the gun violence rate and they'll be like, look at all the numbers of people guns kill, right? But when you really break down the data, about 70% of it is suicide. Okay. Right? And then you go, what goes next? Then you start looking, well, then where's the gun violence after that? Well, then it's not over because obviously we're taking these numbers as the whole country, right? So if the whole country, we have this gun murder rate, 70% of it's suicide. And then next we're like, well, where's this gun violence happening? Oh, it's happening in specific areas of the country, particular cities, right? And then when we look closer, right, it's happening in gang-filled areas, right? We don't have a problem with black men running up and shooting and killing people in this country. Last time I checked, it's a bunch of white people, right, fucking doing these mass murdering. So yeah, I've seen a lot of white people, but that's not even important. It's not an important aspect of it. The point is that when you look at the data more heavily, you realize this isn't about black. This is about gangs, and you're associating it with black, only contributing to the problem and scaring more white folk.
No, okay, no. If it's a fact, for example, you rarely hear about, or I haven't heard of any drive-by shooting from a white person. If you hear about that more of the black community, even if you tried your best to not listen to it from the news, but you see it online, if you were to type up gang fight, or someone getting jumped, you will see naturally like a long list of black people jumping someone. In fact, it's extremely rare for you to find a white person attacking a black person or them jumping a black person. It is far more common without you even have to looking up data. The computer itself, the algorithm itself will show you there's far more black people attacking white people or attacking black people or attacking other groups. There's
What's your number? We got any numbers on this?
Well, yeah, sure. Okay. Now I have, for example, I have a list of like the crimes or things that black people commit versus white people. So for example, when it comes to rape, white people commit 68% rape in the country. Black people.
You said white people?
Yeah, 68.
White people. 68% of the rape is white people. Okay.
Yeah, and that would be like a close to 1-to-1 ratio because.
Sure. Do you see a bunch of black people being afraid of white people raping them?
No, because white people.
No. Why? I mean, but yet white people rape at 65% of the rate. Now it's like, now I would imagine the black would rape. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Because white people actually fear black people more.
Why?
Well, because black people are actually. Well, I mean, this is.
Yeah, they fear black people.
No.
Because of racism. It's not racist. It's not because of crime.
No.
It's because of racism.
No,
bro, they were hanging black people 30 years ago.
Okay,
40 years ago.
Yeah,
not 30 years. I'm sorry, 45, 50 years ago.
Yeah. But for one, I mean, this is going to sound real bad, but black women are seen as less attractive, so you don't find them running to rape a black woman. Black men.
What?
Yeah.
What the hell are you talking about? That is some racist ass shit again.
Okay.
Jesus Christ, bro.
But
I'm married to a black woman, bro. Fucking black women are sexy as fuck. The reason they don't find them sexy is racism.
Okay, so then you're proving my point anyway.
Yeah, yes, that there's racism. The reason people aren't attracted to black women, right, is racism.
Okay, so if I'm not attracted to a white person, that's racism too?
Or is it because they're white that you're not attracted to them?
Well, maybe. Like, maybe I just don't like that kind of...
But what you said for black people earlier is that they find them ugly.
No, I'm just saying that they find them less attractive.
Well, that's what you said, a different word. I thought you said ugly earlier.
No. I said they find them less attractive. So because of that, but on the flip side...
And you think that's why black people are afraid? I don't think black people even know these numbers, man.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. Dude, hold on just one second. Can I talk to the moderator real quick? Not about you. Bro, can you get rid of some of these racist ass people in the fucking chat, bro? Like, it is going crazy with racist ass shit in the chat. We
do have our chat mods timing people out.
Guys, man, it's so bad. I'm sorry to interrupt you, bro. It's so bad right now.
Is there somebody specific that you've seen?
I'm trying to get in there. Some people are putting up pictures of watermelons. People are doing all kinds of shit in there. Like, it's bad. I'll try to just let you know.
I'm going to put them in timeout right now. And then,
go ahead,
my
Justin,
chat mods, if you could, keep an eye out. Because I didn't see that. But if you see it, go ahead and time them out. And if you persist with that, we're just going to have to ban you. So, go ahead.
Yeah, please, Justin.
So what I was trying to say is that, I guess from all races, most people find, well, I'm not saying most people, but statistically, people find black women as less attractive, while on the flip side, women find black men as like more attractive. So you find them going for black men. But the point I'm trying to make is that you find black men actually trying to rape white women like 10 times more than the other way around. Another thing, when it comes to robbery,
What's the stats on that? What's the stats on that?
I would have to look it up. I didn't actually prepare it with those numbers, but
Okay. So you're just telling me that black people rape a bunch of white women. It's black men raping white women is the statistic, or black men just raping other people?
Black men rape white women or white people or other races far more than it being the flip side.
I also find it interesting that you make all these distinctions, right? Like as if it's just not people
because
raping
we're talking
people.
about black and white.
Well, no, we're talking about racism, right? But what you're doing is you're demonizing the black race by basically bringing up all these high crime statistics that most people aren't even aware of, right? Most people don't have the basic understanding of the data and understand what the crime rate is. They just go on the things that their parents have taught them. And like this imaginary world where you think that like this racism, I don't know if you think it's gone or like it doesn't happen very often.
No, my stance is that it's not significant. So it exists. I experience racism, but I don't think it's very significant. I won't riot.
Except for the criminal justice system, of course.
Not even.
Well, then why do blacks and whites use drugs at the same level, yet they're arrested far more often?
Well, I would have to look deep into that because there's other issues such as like maybe I guess family issues. If a person doesn't have like a good background or they have other crimes that is stacked up behind them, then that may actually contribute to them actually being in prison for longer, or maybe they have like several strikes against them. So I would have to look at things case by case. But
how about the jury selection one that I brought up? Why is it that we're having a situation where we have, 53% of black people eligible for juries in criminal, opposed to 26% of white people being struck out?
Well, I mean, there's reasons for that, such as maybe there's things that would, I would say, disqualify them. Maybe they're not showing up to cases. Maybe they have some connection to the person who's standing trial.
That's not what this study is talking about. This is talking about like when they pool juries, like when this isn't like a situation where they don't know if you're going to show up. Like you would be chosen already at that point, then you wouldn't show up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I mean, you're just kind of like, it sounds like just making things off the top of your head, but like this is literally, I mean, a study that between 1990 2010, state prosecutors struck down about 53% of black people eligible for juries in criminal cases, opposed to 26% of white people. Yeah. The odds of that happening is 1 in 10 trillion.
1 in 10 trillion. I don't see what's
without being any kind of racial bias. They said the odds of that randomly happening to where there was a disparagement that much is 1 in 10 trillion.
They have to do it. They have to like write out. They have to make an application of like what their background and everything. So they would have to. There may be other factors besides racism.
Well, they factor those in. Well, that's what I'm saying. They factor this stuff. That's the point of the study. They're factoring. You can read the study. I can give it to you if you want to read the study for yourself. I'm happy to give it to you.
Yeah, but you want me to assume that right now because you didn't state.
Well, listen, if you have not brought up one study this whole debate, you've just told me stuff off the top of your head. You've just given me random numbers that you can't be specific about.
No.
You said racist ass shit about tacos and Mexicans. Like, I don't know. I can't take right so far. It's hard to take what you're saying seriously.
I actually wanted to share this screen, but the FBI uniform crime reporting.
Sure. You want to share your screen, Justin?
Yeah. I don't know why.
So you just go to screen share, and I'll add it to the stream. You see it at the bottom?
I don't know. For some reason I can't click on anything. I think my thing is frozen.
Okay.
Wait a second. Yeah, I can't even see the comments. That's how I know something's wrong on my side.
Okay. Yeah, if it comes back and you want to add it to the stream, I'll share it. Just let me know if it fixes back up.
Yeah. Wait, can I leave and then jump back in?
Yeah, that's fine. If you want to do that.
Let me get to my Gmail real quick just so I can.
The basic argument you're just making is white people are scared of black people because of high crime. And you're not going to be able to present any data that actually connects that. Like, you can make that assertion, but you're going to have to connect it somehow, besides just having an assertion.
Okay, now it's better. Oh, wait. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I can't show my screen. For some reason, it's not allowing me to share. But anyway, what I was going to just pretty much go down the list of the FBI uniform reporting since 2018 or of 2018.
Yeah, but why are we doing it? Why are we going to go over black crime? We're not having a debate on how high the black crime rate is.
But okay, why not? Because that would explain why they're actually being profiled.
No, you can you need to connect that with data, right? You can show that there's a high. I know. I'll acknowledge that the black crime rate is high in these areas. We'll just grant you for the sake of the argument. Now, you need to connect why people are so afraid of black people is because of this crime rate.
Okay, because see, crime.
Most people don't even know these crime rate statistics.
Most people do, actually. That's why, you could probably see in the comments, people will put 13 equals 50%. You will find that most of the time. Maybe you don't.
Yes, I know. It's a very right-wing talking point that I see. I see a lot of racist neo-Nazis use that quite a bit.
So then you can't say most people don't know. Most people on the
the people that I see, are usually using it are neo-Nazis and racist.
Would you call me a neo-Nazi?
No, I'm just saying that most of the people that I do see are neo-Nazis and racists. But it shows that you have something in common with them, though.
No. Well, this is a fact. So if this is a fact,
you're helping them, to be honest with you.
No. What matters
you are helping them, and it's so sad. You don't even realize it.
But if it's true, then it has nothing. It's not against me. It's not against black people.
No. I'm not saying it's not true, this particular crime rate you're saying, but I'm saying you need to connect it to why you're saying, because one aspect of this is the criminal justice system. I have the data for that, right? Which you haven't presented any data yet, besides just saying that black people murder more people.
But I'm trying to
really that's really about gangs, not really black people.
But you're not
continue to do that.
But you didn't even present whether they were gangs or not, and whether that even matters, because if they're black gangs, they're still black, and they would explain why black people are being profiled.
No, it's the drug war, my man.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's a drug war. If it's a drug war,
it's not the. You couldn't even tell me how many murders happened in this country. Last year.
But I can tell you the percentage of the people who have committed.
What year was that from? Because that stat has been around for a long time.
This is 2018.
What year is that? 2018. What's 2020? What's 2019?
Well, they're still formulating. I don't know. Do you know?
No, I'm just asking. That's why you're presenting data.
But we do have something that at least we can go back to reference.
So your argument is basically black people are scary. They commit more crimes, so people are prejudiced against them.
No, you're adding too many words to my argument.
Not that many words.
Okay, saying that black people are scary and all that, no. Basically, if you're looking at someone and you see that they would fit a description of another murderer, then you're going to check on them. You don't even have to be scared of them. You're just doing your job. You're actually doing what you were supposed to do. So the thing is, when you're looking at, for example, I was trying to go down the list of pretty much the crimes that black people do in comparison of white people. It would explain why there's an imbalance of black people being profiled, while they're also being arrested disproportionately. So, for example,
that's not what the data says. No. I presented data that contradicted what you're saying here already.
It's not even contradicting.
Ferguson, yes, I'm going to read it again. I'll read it again for you.
Let Justin finish, and then we'll come right back to you.
I'm sorry. In the very beginning, I already the Ferguson report did this. It showed that they had less weapons and less drugs, and they were arrested more.
So if they're killing people with weapons...
No, they're not killing. That's the thing, is you keep using killing, but you can't state how many murders happened last year. How many of them were gang related? How many of them were black?
Wait, so
you're saying that the cops are looking for murderers, which isn't true. Cops aren't constantly out there looking for murderers to pull over. The only time they pull people over for murder is when a murder happens.
Okay.
Right? So it doesn't. So where all those murders happen, if you go and look at the statistics, they're in the inner cities in Chicago, LA. Why in Ferguson are we have these same issues where we don't have all these murders?
Okay.
What's the murder rate in Ferguson?
The murder rate in Ferguson. I would have to look it up right now.
Right,
I would
because
have
it wouldn't make sense if the murder, like I live in Florida, our murder rate, Orlando, we're not like New York. Our cops aren't going to act like New York, but yet we still have these discrepancies, right?
Okay.
A place like Ferguson doesn't have the murder rate like New York City, right? These cops aren't out there looking for murders and pulling people over. They're pulling people over for drugs. And guess what? The white people have them more often, according to the statistics, yet the black people are being arrested for it.
Okay.
And then higher sentences.
Okay, but I need to finish my argument for you to even know what you're like going against.
I mean, if you're just going to list, it's really, I mean, just listing crime isn't really on topic.
Yeah, but what happens is I state something, and then you pretty much say that doesn't connect to the data when I'm trying to explain how it is connecting to the data. So for example, if you even go down the list of even drugs and all these different things, it would explain why black people are actually getting caught for drugs. Because if you're doing more dangerous crimes, such as killing and shootouts and all this other stuff, it's going to attract the cops. They're going to come for the more dangerous crimes. They actually look over drug crimes if it's not causing drama. That's why there's less cops being like patrolling in white areas where there are drugs. A lot of gang members, if they have a good business, they would prefer their gang to not do any kind of violence that would invite the cops, because then it would mess up the drug business. A lot of black thugs, a lot of times they shoot, they have shootouts and all these different things.
Numbers to support this?
Well,
saying things. You're just saying things, bro. You're not backing up anything. You're making empty assertion after empty assertion.
But what just happened is that I quoted the fact that 53%.
You quoted one.
Oh, no, yeah, you're not allowing me to go down the list.
Let Justin finish, let's give him a couple minutes, and then we'll come right back.
I didn't realize we were having a debate on the black crime rate.
Well,
I thought we were having a debate on racism. The crime rate could be really high. Black people could commit a lot of crime. Racism can still exist in a very serious problem.
Skylar, let's give him a couple minutes
to make
his
point. It's not relevant.
We'll come back to you. Let's let him finish his point.
I'm letting him make his point. I got it, my man. Let him go. But I'm just saying it's not relevant because both can be true.
Yeah, both can be true. So then we can.
So this is irrelevant.
Yeah, no, we can still explore the other parts of this.
I mean, yes, you can continue.
But I think what we would have to do is actually give each other a minute to speak before, because this informal way of talking is not helping.
Yeah, if we need to go to like 2-minute intervals, we can do that. Let's let him start, and then we'll come right back to you, Skylar.
Yeah. So what I was trying to get to is that pretty much what the FBI crime reporting has is that white people commit 44% of the murder, even though they represent 60% of the population, and then black people commit 53%, even though they represent 13% of the population. So they represent at least like 5 to maybe 7, times of like the murder. So they're going to be checked for that. Rape, white people 68%, black people 28%. So black people are 2 times more likely to be tried for rape or something. Robbery, white people commit 53% of the robbery, black people 54%. So still, they account for more than half of the robbery in America, even though they're 13%. Burglary, 68%. Black people, 29%. So they represent like 3 times the rate of burglary. Car theft, white people commit 64%. Black people, 32%. Considering that they represent 13%. So that's like 3 times the amount. So it makes sense that you would find more black people being arrested for maybe just driving a car, and it just fits the profile of a stolen car. Arson, white people commit 71%. So yeah, white people, hold on. Black people commit 25%, which is still 2 times the rate. So you get my point. Because of this, they were going
20 minutes ago. I didn't need you to read all these.
Yeah. But because of this, black people are more likely to be checked for all these kinds of crimes, or they're suspected of it. So
that's your claim.
Well, but that's
what you're claiming. Yeah, that's your claim. That's why they're being checked. Right? And I'm going to tell you why it doesn't make any sense, right? 65% of white people. If you want to back it up with some data or information.
But cops, their job, even if they were just robots who were not racist, their job is to go look for these people who are committing the crime. So it's going to be disproportionately like more on black people because they are looking for the people who are committing the crime the most, or they will just end up getting the people that commit the crime the most. So the jails are going to be, more of black people than white people. So that's just it. You're going to see 3 times, 4 times the amount of black people than white people. That's just the case. And then also because we aren't as rich as white people sometimes, we don't have good lawyers to defend us. So that would actually be a good reason why we may actually be in prison a lot longer when we could have gotten out for maybe 2 years, 1 year, or actually gotten out free if we had a good lawyer. But because we aren't as financially free as some white people, that's just the nature of things.
So you didn't connect anything. You just read a bunch of crime statistics, and then you said, hey, this is the reason cops pull people over. When I had the data, and I'll read it right again, that showed the opposite. Between 2014, black people in Ferguson accounted for 85% of the vehicle stops, 90% of the citations, 93% of the arrests. Despite comprising of 67% of the populations, blacks were more than twice as likely as whites to be searched after traffic stops. And they found that they were 26% likely to have drugs and guns, right? So I have data that supports my argument. You have crime statistics that you've read off in order to demonize black people. I'm sorry?
Is that data?
You have data about crime statistics. You don't have data that connects crime statistics to why cops pull people over more often. And your murder thing is absolutely ridiculous because this idea that because once again, if you looked at the statistics of murder, you would realize we're a big nation. Like these racism problems happen all over the country. This murder problem happens in particular cities, in particular areas by gangs. Right? So listen, if your argument might make a little bit more sense in the inner cities, but it doesn't make sense in a place like Ferguson because their murder rate isn't as high. So there's no reason for these cops to be pulling all over these black people if the murder rate's not as high and they're less likely to have drugs in their car and they're less likely to have guns in their car. It doesn't make any sense. And then you somehow you just I guess wash away everything that's happened. You look about my age. How old are you? I'm 41. You in your 30s? How old are you?
33.
33, right? Mm-hmm. Your grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents lived in a time of segregation, I would imagine.
Well, my parents are from Costa Rica, so it was different.
So yeah. So black folks here in America, literally my grandparents' generation, lived in a time where they were separated in schools. I think what I find funny is I don't know if you think it just kind of disappeared, right? All of a sudden, all these racist folks that were literally my grandparents' generation, who literally had parties where they hung black people from trees, right? Mm-hmm. Separated whites from blacks, separated restaurants, education, right? And then these effects of racism just disappeared and don't exist and don't play a strong key in our society. And I've showed you not only just with pulling people over, because you focused almost the whole time on the pulling over aspect, but I've showed you with studies that had to do with racial bias and how people look, right? Light-skinned, dark-skinned. I showed you criminal sentence disparities. I've showed you all types of data with that. And besides just the fact of general racism that people have to deal with every day, that I don't. Have you ever had to actually deal with any personal racism towards you?
Yeah.
Sure. How many times?
Probably, I would say maybe twice, and most of it was in Costa Rica, but not very. I actually did only once in Tennessee. And that was it, and I laughed it off, but it was not deep.
Do you think it when you have to have for instance my black son walking around stores and having people follow him?
Oh, okay.
Right. Do you think that's a problem?
No, it's not a problem.
It's not. You think it's okay to racially profile a black child?
Well, it makes sense. Well, the reason why I know it makes sense is because back when I was in Brooklyn, I remember one time I stole something from the store and I noticed, this is when I was 11 or something. We stole something from the store and then I ran out thinking, man, I just stole and we're all black kids doing this. So then when I went to a Kmart, that was the supermarket over there, I noticed that someone was actually following me. And I thought, it makes sense that they will follow me, considering that we are the kinds of kids that steal. And
Black kids?
Mostly, yes. And the Puerto Ricans and the Dominicans.
Okay, data? Do you have any data to back up that mostly black kids steal?
Well, yeah.
Did you just assert something else that you can't back up?
I just, like, if I quote the FBI crime statistics, you're going to say,
sure. Is that black children in those FBI crime statistics, or is that adults?
Well, that's adults, but
right. So why you just made a claim that black children steal more often, I guess, than white children?
Well, yeah.
Besides you being a thief and stealing shit, right, and then equating all black people because you did something.
No, I'm just saying that I saw that not only in black kids, but also black people.
You and your friend, you saw it because you guys were doing it.
Yeah,
right?
me, I was doing it.
But did your black skin make you steal?
Well, no, my black culture.
Black culture made you steal.
Yeah.
Why? What about black culture makes people steal?
Well, we believe a lot of times we believe that that society owe it to us because of slavery and because of Jim Crow and the oppression that we went through. That they owe it
in your pocket. Like, who are you talking about? Just like, is these your own personal beliefs?
No. This is a common thing. That's why Black Lives Matter will go out freely and say that looting is reparations.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
extreme. I don't know if they are. You saying Black Lives members or the actual organization?
No, the leader, the organization, and actually.
You have somewhere I could read it and actually see that that's on their platform. Is that we should do this stuff, or are you just saying?
Well, yeah, actually, there's clear video. There's news stories on it where.
So just like an individual saying something, but not the actual representations of the actual organization.
One of the leaders of the branch in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Explain why they were looting, and they said that looting is reparations, and no one tried to correct them.
You're just saying a black person had an opinion, one person. That's not an organization, right? Saying that just because somebody's an organization and that person says, "Hey, this is my justification for why it's okay to do this," right? But what you do, this is actually you're basically stereotyping your whole race. As if like, listen, my kids don't do that, right? I've got lots of black family members. That isn't part of their black culture. I grew up in all black communities my whole entire life, right? I'm not black. I don't know that black experience. I can't speak for fucking black people. Well, but I can tell you,
saying that they're not doing that is also stereotyping. It's just the opposite.
I'm sorry. How is that stereotyping saying that they're not doing it?
Well, yeah, just saying that black people.
Well, I'm saying you haven't provided evidence for it is really what I'm saying. So if you can provide evidence that the majority of black children steal, like.
No, I'm not saying the majority. I'm just saying that there's a high ratio of black children or just.
Data to back that up.
You don't. Okay. I'm just giving my anecdotal, information.
Just your opinion. Okay. No, that's fine. Okay. You can't do anything with your opinion.
You can say that, but at this point, like, you can go to urban areas if you have ever experienced that. And you will find that
I've lived in urban areas. I'm from Philadelphia, Fishtown, Kensington.
And so if you have seen, you notice that there is more stealing in black communities, and you find that, and you would find that
you can say that's an empty claim, but you have nothing data to back it up.
Okay, so then if I give you the crime statistics, will you just say
black
that
children?
Well, why do you have to connect it to?
Because what my point is that if you're going to say something's a fact, I want proof of it, right? And what you are, and that's kind of a separate issue. What you're doing, you are demonizing black people. You don't realize it, and that's the sad part of it, right? You're making white people. Yes, you are. You're demonizing them because the thing is, those statistics. Because if you actually look at the data, it's not about black people. It's about gangs, and it's in particular areas of our country, right? Like in Chicago, most of this violence is in Chicago, huh? Yes, it does. If you bother to even looked at it, how would you know?
Well, because
the FBI put one type of statistic, but you haven't bothered to look at the even deeper data into it.
Well, you're not proving that to me. You're just telling me that that's the case, hoping that I believe you as though you're a fact.
Okay. Do you not believe that most of the gun violence in this country is performed by gangs? I mean, honestly, just tell me. If you don't, I can go look up data right now.
No, I'm just saying it's irrelevant because if they're black, then that's connected to them.
No, it's not about I'm sorry. Your skin color doesn't make you commit crime.
It doesn't.
Right? You're trying. Well, that's the way you're talking. You're acting like, it's the blackness that makes them commit crime.
No. The point is that if we're looking at who was committing the crime, whether it's by race, then we're seeing whether they're a gang member or not. it's still black people committing 50% of the violence.
No. Well, shouldn't black people be afraid of white old men because they commit most of the child molestations? Yes, that's true.
Okay,
white old men commit.
So then I think it would make sense to actually not have your child being, I guess, babysitted by some old white man. If this data shows that, then that is not demonizing. That's just actually looking at the facts and actually living by that.
You're scaring people because most likely your child's not going to get molested. This is a scare tactic, right? You're trying to justify people having racism against blacks by saying black people commit more crime. Now, you're not dealing with almost any of my data, right? You're not dealing with why they have longer sentences. You're not dealing with why there's racial prejudice with light and dark skin. You're just not. You haven't dealt with almost anything I've said. You haven't dealt with the data with Ferguson.
I dealt with it, but then what happens is you say that I'm not dealing with it as I'm dealing with it. So So for example, like I was trying to explain, if a black man, sometimes he may have like a higher, sentence. That's because he doesn't have a good judge, because he was not able to pay for a good judge. Also because the community. Usually our communities we're not doing financially good. We don't have a good credit score. So we're not
And why is that? But why is that?
Well, a good chunk of that is because we don't have a strong family structure with father and mother in the same home that can actually, bring in the wealth and boost the morale of the children so that they will have, a better backing of what a family should be and what a man should be, and then also how to work and live for yourself. So because
of targeting the drug war on blacks, because the police forces were able to easily target black people in communities because they couldn't, like you say, afford to get lawyers. Cops aren't going to go into rich white neighborhoods and bust people for drugs because they know they're going to lawyer up and fight it, and they don't want to deal with that shit, right? Whites and blacks use drugs at the same level, same rates, yet blacks are statistically higher to be arrested for it. Right. And then you forget like all the reason why the black family is falling apart is because of the history of this country. The fact that my grandparents, your grandparents were here, other black folks' grandparents' generations were here, and the racist policies that still go on today. I mean, we have a fucking racist president in office right now. And we pretend. So I mean, guy who got literally sued for not renting to black people in the 1970s. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why, the black community actually, I guess, taken the bait of drugs being infused into our community. It was really our choice. We had a choice to actually buy from the seller. And because of that, we did not succeed because we allowed, drugs to, infiltrate our community. While we could have just chose to reject it. So it's still our choice. And that was because of culture. We decided to let that poison us. Then also greatly, destroy our community, which caused us to want a crime bill that put more of these drug dealers and these gang members in prison, which eventually hurt us in another way. So we started blaming white people for what we asked them to do to fix the problem that we allow to come into our community.
All right, guys, we're gonna go for about another about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we're gonna go to Q&A because I'm not sure exactly how much time you guys got, but we do have some questions coming in. If you have a question that you would like to ask, you can tag me at Converse Contender in the live chat, or if you want to make sure your question is asked, I can push it to the top of the list if you send in a super chat. And if you guys are listening, you're like, hey, I'd like to hear more of this. Well, you can have more because we put their links in the description. So with that, let's go on for about another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll stop you guys, and I'll give y'all about a minute or two to wrap, like just to kind of give your final conclusion. But about 10 or 15 minutes left.
Yeah, this is another one from the University of Washington. This is about bias in the death penalty sentences. And analysis of 33 years of data from Washington State to determine which characteristics best predict the decision to implement death sentence. Black defendants are 4.5 times as likely to receive a death sentence as similarly situated whites. What do you think about that? Whites, blacks commit the same crime, but blacks are 4.5 times as likely to get the death sentence in the state of Washington. This is a 30-year study, 33-year data study.
Yeah, I would have to look at each case, look at everything case by case. And I think part of the issue is, like I said, they don't have good representation, and they're not able to pretty much have someone intercede for them. So that's just my thing.
I mean, the thing is, once again, this is the problem, is you're just assuming that these black people are poor. I guess you're just assuming.
Yes. Don't you assume that? Or they're rich?
No, I don't assume that they're poor. They could have money. O.J. Simpson.
I'm talking about generally speaking.
Yeah. The poverty rate is very high for the black community.
So I'm speaking generally speaking that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally, but you don't know though. You're just assuming.
No. That's the case. We both agree to that fact. That's a reality.
No, but you're assuming that the reason that they're more likely to get the death penalty is because of lawyer, like they can't afford a lawyer, but you haven't justified that. You just say you just think, hey, well, a lot of people are poor, so this is the distinction, but you haven't really connected it.
Well, you want me to assume the opposite, that it's because of racism?
I'm just saying, just to sit. Well, I mean, that's what the data says. That's what the whole study was for.
The data doesn't say it's because of racism.
You haven't read the report. How would you even know? I'm literally quoting the report. This is the name, the role of race in Washington State capital sentences from 1981 to 2014. Catherine Beckett, professor of law, societies and justice program, Department of Sociology, University of Washington.
Which says what? This is the case because of racism. That's what the judge. That's what the lawyers.
That's the whole point. Is you have to go through and it shows the data why, but it's a whole long thing you're gonna have to go through and you're gonna have to read it. But I think the problem is you haven't done a lot of this research, right? You've done research on black crime statistics. I'm glad that you can demonize the black race whenever you can, but you haven't actually looked deeper into these things besides pushing off neo-Nazi talking points and the alt-rights.
Well, no. Okay. One thing. Saying it's demonization is poisoning the well, because if it's a fact, then you shouldn't consider facts demons, because then that means you're pretty much wanting a lie, or you just don't want these facts. You're against the facts.
Well, you're justifying racism against black people because, black people are scary and they commit murder.
No,
if you look at the statistics, it's not about the skin color. It's about the gang violence.
Well, okay, what I said was before that even if these guys were robots, the police, they were just going out searching for the suspects, they're going to just disproportionately go after black people. And that's just going to be the case.
I provided data that supported what I'm arguing. You haven't. You've just made the connection without backing it up.
So then so what are cops supposed to do? Are they supposed to not go for black people disproportionately?
No, go after the white people, because if you were being even about it, if you were just doing it not based on race and you were doing this even, you would actually catch more white people, because white people in Ferguson were more likely to have drugs and guns. But instead of doing that, being actually just doing on the merit of the stuff. Also, there was a study here that talked about how at night, it's like the number of God, I wish I could, let's see if we can find it real quick. It talks about how at nighttime it actually drops the percentage of black people being pulled over, because obviously it's dark and it's harder to see inside the car to see what race the person is, right? Mm-hmm. There's data that supports that too. Yeah. So it's why is it at night all of a sudden, like I said, unless you're just doing it purely based on race, which is what you're arguing, because you're saying, hey, the murder rate's high, one statistic right here. I don't know. It's just, you're really stretching, man.
Okay. Well, should we just go on to questions, or I'm not sure.
Okay.
We're going to go in circles.
Yeah. I'd like to give you guys just like 1 minute to 1 to 2 minutes to kind of wrap up. Give your conclusions. What do you think in conclusion? Since Skylar, you got the first word, we'll give Justin the last, and so we'll start with you. 1 to 2 minute conclusion, and then we'll give Justin the same.
No, I would just say that during this debate, I've provided study after study after study with data and information. I've connected all the dots. I kind of stayed away from general racist shit that we just see every day in our society. I try to keep more in the numbers. I don't feel you've really dealt with my numbers. I don't believe my opponent actually came with any data besides just saying black people commit crime and white people should be scared of them. right? And then using that as an excuse for why cops should pull more people over, yet that's just not how it works. Especially when I showed data that, black folks were actually having less drugs and less guns in their car in the city of Ferguson. Yeah, that's it. It was a good debate. I appreciate coming on and having a conversation with me.
All right, Justin.
Yeah, so the reason why I brought up these crime statistics because it puts everything in context. Like I said, if a police officer was RoboCop and he didn't care about race at all, he would still nevertheless pretty much disproportionately lock up more black people because they are 7 times more likely to commit, a murder or some kind of serious crime, rape, and those things like burglary. So it makes sense that you would find more black people in prison. And also because of the father issue in our community, we don't have a strong backbone. A lot of times these young guys, they go out in the street and they look for father figures, which could be a gang member, which could be some, good for nothing, thug, and end up committing all kinds of crime with young people, adults, and so on, which would get them in trouble. And because they have no guidance, they're 10 times more likely to resist arrest and to get themselves in further trouble. Because they don't have good family structure, we often, we're not able to pay for good lawyers. And even if there is racism in the courts, we would still be far likely to beat the case with a good lawyer. But because we don't have good lawyers, like a lot of times a lot of white guys do, we are overrepresented in actually these cases where we could have been exonerated. So that is the case. And I don't think it's racism is a big issue. It may play a part in court system, which I accept because when you're selling books or let's say you're selling things to people, you look at the race, you look at cultures, you look at what groups of people like your product more. So that's just the case. And you will notice in the court system, they will look at which judge is presiding, which jury is on there, and how they're going to look at your case based on your race. That's just a fact. So I accept that, but we also have to accept that it's not the defining factor. A lot of times it's the history of the person that will be the deciding factor. So that's my case. I don't believe that racism is a big issue, but it's an issue, but not the determining factor of how we are at the end of the day.
All right. Thanks so much for that. That will conclude our open discussion period, and we will kick it over to the question and answer. I've got a lot of questions, so if anybody still has a question, probably the only way I'm going to be able to notice it is if I see it pop up as a super chat in like a colorful box or whatever, because I've already got so many to ask. But we will start with the super chat. So first super chat came in from Steven Steen. What a nasty guy. He says, modern day debate has by far the prettiest mods. Change my mind. All right. Very nasty guy.
I agree.
Next, Citrafredo Sarabia. Thanks so much for your $10 super chat. Says, Skylar, how do you rationalize blacks against BLM, like rapper Lil Wayne, others saying they want nothing to do with it, or ignore what's happening, this debate, and the obvious cause it's racist?
How do I rationalize that other black people disagree with Black Lives Matter? There's a lot of people who disagree with Black Lives Matter. This debate isn't about Black Lives Matter, like the organization. This debate was about racism in America and what's going on. Like I told you in the very beginning, I think every race can be racist, right? I've met lots of black racist people. I've been mistreated by black racist people, right? I don't personally, people can disagree with people. I don't support everything that Black Lives Matter supports, but I do think Black Lives Matter.
All right. Thanks so much for that. Our next super chat, unless you wanted to say something about that, we'll move on.
I would say that the reason why there are some black people who don't care for Black Lives Matter is because they see that Black Lives Matter is creating more racism where there was no racism. And also, people like Lil Wayne, his experience is that racism is pretty much non-existent, or it doesn't really matter, because so many white people love his music and love him, and it's not a big issue for him. So I feel the same way.
Unless you're getting murdered on the street. Yeah.
All right, thanks so much for that. We just had a super chat come in from King Ed V. Says, I can't super chat my question because of stupid filters. I did get your super chat, so if you do want to send in that question, I'll keep an eye out for it. But with that, we'll go to our next question. Reality Hijack, $2 super chat. Thanks so much. Says, my boy Justin making this man look downright silly. Thanks so much for that. Woody with a €149 sent in a super sticker of hearts. I don't know which one that was for, probably just for the discussion. Let's see. Our next is from Mike Billers, $5. Says, Harvard study, minorities who whiten job resumes get more interviews. You got to.
Is that to me?
Yes.
I can understand that. That makes sense. And I would say that might be a racial issue, considering the fact that some people feel that like black people are less qualified for a job, or if you have like a stereotypical name, let's say your name is Josue or something like that, then yeah, you may actually be racially profiled and assumed to be a good gardener or something. So I can see that happening.
All right.
Yeah, that's actually a study that when you have a black name, you're less likely to get a call back.
All right.
Or wait, let me add one more thing.
Yeah.
And because of affirmative action, that is actually trying to tip the balance, though. So some people may actually hire you because you're black, which in some way could be seen as a positive or a negative, but that does try to offset the thing. So yeah, that's also racism.
All right, thanks so much. Our next super chat comes from Reality Hijacked again for $2. Says, this man has one answer for all problems: racism.
Not all problems. Some problems. There's definitely more problems. Trump's a big problem. Like, if we can just get that man out of office, we'll be in a better place.
All right. All right, so our next super chat is from D-Mac, 5 A's, whatever A currency is. Skylar, stop asking Justin to explain your data. Can you please explain it? And don't just say racist. All praise Raptor Jesus.
Ooh. All hail Raptor Jesus under his claws. Yeah, no, I did. That was my whole opening. Is I went through all the data and I explained what was in the data, and that was the beginning of the show. Maybe you missed it. Check it out. It's good.
All right. Reality Hijack. Yeah, go ahead. Do you want to respond?
He actually asked you to stop asking me to explain your data. How about you explain my data? And I think you tried by saying that my data was just specifically about gang members, and just kind of dismissing that, hey, this doesn't represent being black or white.
That's the data. It is gang members, but you don't know that. You didn't bother to look it up.
Well, I think it's irrelevant if they're black gang members versus.
So why is it relevant that they're black? If it's irrelevant that they're gang members, why is it relevant that their skin color is black?
Well, because you're only looking at.
You want to focus on race.
Well, that's because if we're looking at
like, hey, I'm scared of gang members, I'm afraid of black people. You're choosing to focus on their skin color. Well, that's kind of the point of racism.
Do you know what a gang member looks like?
You do actually, yeah. You could see gang colors. You can see the kind of colors they wear, and you can actually recognize gang members. Absolutely.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. Have you been around any gangs? I've been around gangs.
Yeah, a lot of gang members don't dress. They don't have to dress like a gang member to look like. Well, yeah, any person that actually goes to school, go to college.
Blood, a Crip, the blood. We're all blue, red bandanas.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't have to. But I'm saying, but the point is, though, what you're focused on, you're like, hey, be scared of them because they're black instead of be scared of them because they're gang members.
No, I'm saying
you focus on the race issue. That's the racism part.
Yeah, but there are some black people that dress like they're gang members, but they're not part of a gang.
You're a black man supporting Donald Trump, aren't you?
Oh yeah, of course. He's
The
acting
man
up.
who used the N-word, the man who used the N-word and got sued for discriminating against black people in the 1970s.
Oh, you have data on that?
Yeah, there's actually articles. Have you not read any of this?
No.
You honestly, you haven't heard of the investigation 1979?
Oh yeah,
When Trump. Yeah.
I want you to find the N-word part.
Oh yeah, you can go to his sister's book that
Her
just came
book?
out.
Her
I'm sorry, his
allegation?
niece's book. Yeah, and you can go to many people around him that have also verified that he's used these words. I mean, guys, this isn't a surprise. This is a guy who called, Mexicans rapist, right? This is a man who was sued by the federal government for not renting to black people. Like, you pretend like this is kind of odd or strange. When neo-Nazis show up in Ferguson dressed like their leader,
No.
I mean,
okay.
dude. Yeah, I know. Listen, that's fine. I won't back. I could say that you have firsthand accounts from relatives, right? If you want to discount them, like you're acting like this man's such a fucking moral man there, Justin.
No.
Yeah. This is the guy who fucked.
All right, we got to reel it in.
My last thing. This man had sex with a porn star, lied about it, paid her off, then lied to her at his campaign, and then, hey, I thought you were a Christian, right? There's moral Christian principles. I guess you gave those all up in order for economic.
Well, I'm talking to you. I mean, I guess I still support you. I think you're cool. I don't have to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to see.
I'm not a racist.
Well, that's not the only reason you go to hell.
What?
You don't go to hell for being
I'm
racist.
about supporting your values, though. Like, you're going to support a racist, a guy who has no integrity at all, that lies constantly. Right? Like you seems like you give up any type of moral responsibility in your vote. Like, how could you trust somebody that is a racist, lying bigot? Tells people he grabbed women by the pussy. And literally, I think we're about to have a rape case.
We have to reel it back in here. All right.
Yeah.
That's that's next week's debate. Is Trump.
Is it?
No, I don't know. If you guys want, we'll do it. All right.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
All right. Awesome. We'll set that one up soon, hopefully. All right, next super chat. Reality Hijacked, $2 again. Virtue signaling gives Skylar a major dopamine hit. Skylar, is there any thing to that?
I love to ride it. I love that dopamine hit. Makes me feel good inside.
I just seen King Ed V, I think it is. He says that he's asked his question twice on a super chat, and I'm not getting it. So if anybody else sees his question, I still am yet to see that question come in. But Crystal Rua, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, $4.99, had two super chats. The first one came in, did not have anything attached to it, so thanks for that. And then the second one just came in, says, love your honesty, humbleness, and sincerity, Justin. You're a breath of fresh air. Keep it up. Keep up the great work. You know, what's so interesting about the chat, and I love this because every time I moderate, I see this basically, or most of the time. Sometimes it's all one-sided, but it's always like, oh, Justin already won. And then the next line down is, Skylar already beat this guy. Or it'll be like, Justin is an amazing guy. And the next line will be like, he sucks. It's just so funny to watch, like, each position come in. But anyway, so sorry. I just I think that's very interesting. But move on to our next question. Looks like our next super chat is from I don't know how to pronounce this, but the Banero of Hamura Akami. $20 super chat. Thanks so much. Skylar and Justin, what do you think about the fact that minorities, due to Jim Crow laws, gerrymandering, own less property, so the amount of wealth passed on to between generations is part of systemic racism?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Justin, you got any opinion on that?
Yeah, as of today, I don't believe that systemic racism is stopping us from being, great entrepreneurs. And also, at this point of history, like, we in America, we produce the richest black men around the world, and it didn't require, they didn't need to actually be, they didn't need to inherit a bunch of wealth to actually be rich. All they need was the opportunity, and I think every black person has that opportunity. And actually, we have a greater advantage. We just need to learn to take advantage of that. So, for example, when Nigerians come here, they go straight to the medical field, and they end up, doing other things with their business, and they just become entrepreneurs and they become super rich. So that's just one thing that we need to change. Is just our work ethic and also our culture of career, like what career choices that we make.
All right, thanks so much. I finally got that question from Kinged V, Kinged underscore V, so maybe Kinged underscore 5, maybe. It might be a Roman numeral. Says, ask Skylar why on a per case incident, a white person is more likely to be shot by police than a black man.
I don't know. I haven't looked at the data.
All right. Thanks so much for that. Move on to our next question from Gabriel K. Thanks for your $5 super chat. Says, I find it problematic when attraction or lack thereof can mean racism. You said it don't back up, justify it. Are gay people sexist? Don't dance around this. That's for you, Skylar.
What is he saying?
He says that he finds it problematic when attraction or lack of attraction can mean racism, and he says, are gay people sexist? I guess because they only date their same sex, and he says, how do you justify it? Don't dance around this.
I don't know. I was talking about the idea of why white people just don't find black people attractive, right? I don't know what goes through white people's mind. It seems like from our history that's happened. I mean, think about, I wouldn't have had the right to even marry my wife till 1979, the year I was born, right? Like this was for literally the year I was born. In certain places, it was still illegal to marry a white person and a black person to marry, right? In my lifetime. And like somehow, like I said, Justin thinks like racism's just gone and not a serious issue. It just went underground. I hate to tell you, like it's still alive and well. They may not say it to you, and I'm glad your personal experience, you haven't, gotten to experience that kind of racism, but a lot of people have.
I would like to add something to that. Can I answer that question?
Yeah, go ahead. Please.
Well, see, the thing is, a lot of people see black women as like very masculine or very, I guess, obstinate, like very rebellious and strong-willed, and that's partially because of time of slavery and then also Jim Crow, where they had to live without the man. They had to be independent and survive on their own. And when the man came back in the picture, they were pretty much independent and didn't really need the man. So a lot of black women, they don't have a submissive personality. So that comes off, that actually exude from their personality, which, would explain why they're not seen as very attractive. But on the other end, like Asian women are seen as like the most attractive because they're very submissive looking. I mean, they may not be submissive, but they're very submissive looking. So.
Okay. Since the question was for Skylar, if you had anything else to add, we'll let you have the last word. If not,
no,
we'll move
that's
on.
it. I'm good.
All right.
I'm
right.
good.
So our next super chat, $5 from Mike Biller, says Justin totally won this one. Then he sent in another super chat for $5 just right after that said Skylar totally won this one. Thanks so much for keeping the tradition alive.
Can I just tell people in the audience, I think they think that I'm like a super liberal progressive. I'm actually a centrist, a registered Republican. So I'm just not a Trumplican, right? I didn't buy the bullshit.
You're a registered Republican?
I am a registered Republican. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I would have never thought that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's easier for, I think, people in the audience to just call me names and just assume something because I argue a particular position.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot on both sides, yeah.
But I'm not a Trump supporter because I have a heart and some common sense.
That's the next debate. All right.
Next
Let's
debate.
save that for the next one. All right. So our next question comes from. I'm gonna move to our actual questions now out of the super chats. We have Joey Roca says, Converse, can you ask Skylark Fiction why cops are 18 times more likely to be killed by a black man than any other race?
I don't know what that has to do with racism, but most likely, once again, if you were to look at the statistics, it has to do with gang violence, not black people.
All right. Aiden says, Converse, question for Justin. Do you think that Jim Crow era laws had effects that echo in today's world, such as black families not having access to high value properties for so long?
I would say there is some, but I would say that most of the factors is our own crime. So we could have, like, the redlining that did exist, we could have turned that around and actually made something out of that. And if we had supported our own businesses and just pretty much had I guess, a different desire of what we want for our people as far as career wise, we would be in a different place. So no, I don't think it has a big impact, but it has some impact.
All right, awesome. We have a patron question from Spart344. Says, is it possible that people can be a-holes and will use any means necessary to trigger a reaction, including making use of racial epithets? And have you thought that it is a personal attack on you and not against an entire race?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, I think it's for Skylar, but yeah, if you want to, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Oh, you said okay.
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah.
Yeah, I do believe that people, if they are being provoked and pushed around, let's say there's a group of people that's like, yelling at a white person, saying, say it, dare you say it. That white person may be tempted to try to get underneath their skin and hurt them emotionally. So they would say the N-word. They don't really hate all, black people. They may actually have a black husband or, black best friends, but they know that black people hate that word, especially when you use it in malice. So, yeah, you don't have to be racist to say the word. You're just trying to get underneath somebody's skin, and I've seen it happen so many times.
I would agree with that. I don't disagree with that.
All right, we'll move on to the next question then. We just had a super chat come in from S.J. Thomason. She says,
Yeah.
$5 super chat. Thanks so much, S.J. Says, Justin has excellent leadership potential and a future. May God bless him richly. Thanks so much for that.
Thank you.
All right. Our next question is from... Well, actually, I'm going to skip some of these that are more just like comments about the speakers, so I can include as many questions as possible because we are going to get out of here in just a few minutes. Patrick Smith, Converse, what about the crime victimization survey, FBI, where people have no reason to misrepresent what happened to them as victims? The survey data lines up with arrest data. I'm not 100% what they're asking unless you guys are just familiar with that survey. We'll move on.
I'm not. I don't know exactly what was being said, to be honest with you.
Okay. Korag Nightwolf says for both, if I say it's more likely white people will rob a bank because more white people rob banks, is that a validly sound argument to profile white people in banks?
To me, it does. So, for example, if you dress in a certain way, if you wear red, and you find that if you're wearing red and you get shot at by someone wearing blue, then you understand that, okay, well, you're more likely to get shot at by someone from a rival gang. It's not going to be exactly the case all the time, but you're looking at statistics. You're looking at just basically what generally is the case, or what's going to happen more likely because of whatever factors. So yeah, I should expect that.
Oh,
Yeah, well, just to ask that question too. Just to be fair, now earlier, Justin, you told me you couldn't look at gangs and recognize that they were gang members. That was your argument earlier, and now you just used an example where, hey, if they looked like they were in a gang and they were wearing certain colors, I just want to point that out. That one point you argued that you couldn't look at them. Now you're saying you could look at a gang and do that. No, I don't think we should do that in banks. But I think it just plays to the point that. What the real issue is people aren't pulling people over for the murder rate, right? They're pulling them over for drugs, and the drug thing. Anyways, let's keep going.
All right.
I'll just repeat myself.
All right. So we had another super chat come in from King Ed the Fifth or V. Says that was a poor answer to my question. Skylar, shows you're wrong. We had another $2 super chat come in from Gabriel K. Says, good job taking criticism on both sides. So great job for that, guys. And let's see, we have just a couple more questions. 20 Faces asked, does Justin worship white Jesus?
You worship white Jesus?
Yeah,
I worship a Jesus who's a chameleon. He's all colors, any color he feels like. Because he's God right now, his skin color is whatever he feels like. So,
all right, thanks so much. Craig Nightwolf follows up with, how reliable are crime stats in this debate compared to reality of the actual case-by-case situations, like being arrested for false crimes that are not overturned?
Another good point. It isn't just like these particular numbers, like the idea of like crime. There's all types of things. That's why I brought up all the information about bias, how they've done tests on how people physically look at somebody, right? They did about disparages in sentencing, right? But those weren't really dealt with. It was just a claim that cops are pulling people over because of the murder rate.
Well, yeah, we would have to look at the margin of error right now. I don't have, I don't see like a huge reason to believe that the margin of error is like 50% or something like that. Probably like, a good 5%. But yeah, beyond that, I find it hard to believe it's more than that.
All right, thanks so much. We had a super chat come in. $5 from St. Charles says, are you the guy from White Man Can't Jump or Coming to America? Either way, love your movies, bro. The high top fade.
Everyone keeps saying, yeah, I look like Eddie Murphy.
Or Wesley Snipes when he had the flat tops.
Oh, yeah. They also call me that because his I guess, eccentric hairstyle in Blade or something.
Yeah, and in, like he said, White Man Can't Jump. I think that was actually probably his most famous, look as well. So, great, awesome. So, Alex T says, why is Skylar so intent on pushing mental abuse to a black man when trying to well, that just sounds like an attack, so we're going to skip that.
Well, I did want to say something to that. So one of the things I didn't get a chance to bring up was in Nashville between 2011 and 2015, black drivers in Nashville, Davidson County, were pulled over at a rate of 1,122 stops per 1,000 drivers. So on average, more than once per black driver, more than one for black drivers. Black drivers were also searched twice at the rate of white drivers through than other jurisdictions. Churches of white drivers were more likely to turn up contraband again. So once again, you're more likely to get something off a white person, yet you're more likely to pull a black person over. Just another example of the many, many data points that I've brought up showing what basically Justin is arguing is false.
Well, so you just bringing up data and then you want me to jump to racism.
No. What I'm doing is disproving what you're saying, right? You're saying it's because of the crime that black people commit that they're getting pulled over more. But in I believe it was three of my studies, it showed that it was more likely you were going to get contraband off of white people, drugs, weapons, right? if you pulled them over, but they're still pulling black people over more often. That's
Okay.
the point.
Well, I want to go back and forth, but I mean, I think we probably have
We'll do
third
it
time.
another time. Yeah. We can fix it
Yeah,
another
so
time.
I'm just going to read maybe like 3 or 4 more, and then we'll be done. That because we're running out of time here. We just had a $4.99 super chat come in from Juria Edwin. It didn't have anything attached to it, so thanks for the support. And our last couple questions here. That sounds like an attack. Andrew, sorry. Andrew T says, question, why is the rate of violence actually higher among poor urban whites? Why don't we ever discuss the economic impact of redlining and segregation on rates of violence?
Okay, so is that for me?
I think so, yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it makes sense. If you are, if you have certain, I guess, morale that is not allowing you to, I guess, leave your neighborhood, then yeah, you're more likely to commit crimes. You may live out in the streets because there's more dysfunction there. Because there's dysfunction, there's going to be more violence, and the same thing for the black community. Except when the issue is ingrained in the culture, then it becomes a thing. So when it comes to, I would say, white people, if they decide to say, hey, this is a white trash thing and we're white trash, then it's actually harder to get that mentality outside their minds. But when it's a black thing that, hey, we're black people and we can't make it no matter how much we try, then that mentality sticks to us. And then we stay in our communities and we would trash our communities with crime, and we redline our own selves because I guess the value of the property in the area just goes down. So that's just what it is.
Are you saying like the thing where you talking about like how rappers say like they'll never leave the hood and that kind of thing?
That kind of thing. When it comes to white people, it's less likely because they don't identify it as like their trashy, I guess, ghetto behavior. They don't identify it as being white. Black people, we identify it as being black, like being a thug.
You're literally just stereotyping your own race. You're just stereotyping your own race. I have a black wife and children. They don't do that. I have black family members. They don't do that. Right? You don't get to just make a generalization and stereotype your whole race without anything to support it besides you just saying it. Right? Well, you want to support that, put data on it. But this is BS. And this just only continues to demonize black people with your bullshit fucking stereotyping.
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like stereotyping Christians. You know that more likely you're going to find a Christian who believes in young earth, I guess, creation, than you would, I guess, an atheist. Now,
that's not true. Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. I thought you were going to say compared to other Christians, and I'm like, what? Sorry, I jumped the gun on that one.
No, but you're going to find that more in Christianity because they identify it as being Christian than you would an atheist because they don't identify it as being, atheist.
But that's biblical doctrine, right? That's a biblical doctrine.
That's my point.
Yeah, but you don't have a race doctrine. You don't have a book you're going to. No, you don't have a race doctrine. Where does this race doctrine come from?
Well, that we all are connected by our struggle being black, and then because of that, we see that we are going to.
Hey, you just said why you have a struggle.
Well, there's a struggle that because I'm black, people hate us just naturally.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
oh, really? They just hate you naturally because you're black.
Well, yeah.
What is that called? What is that called?
Well, that's racism. I'm not saying
racism, right? And you don't think that's a problem now?
Well,
like you're saying, your whole culture is like this, right? And then you're saying, well, we're like this because racism. So. Well, and you're going to disconnect that like that's not a problem in America?
My point is that it's not a problem for me or a big problem for everyone. But my point is that you believe that you actually believe that about black people, and black people believe that. Generally speaking,
I don't believe that about black people. No.
You don't believe that black people feel that they are being racially discriminated?
No, you said something different. I thought you were talking about how I feel, like what you were just describing about your culture. I don't agree with you with this black culture thing.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's hilarious. You just admitted racism, the whole point of the debate, and why white people are afraid of you.
Well,
We might as well just that's kind of the end of the debate, huh?
The key word is significant. Significant.
It's pretty significant if you're saying your whole culture is like this and it's affected because of racism, right? If it affects all of your culture, all of your culture believes this, and it's because of the way white people treat them, right? It seems like that's pretty fucking significant.
All right, guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me just ask. Let me just do 2 more questions, and then we'll be finished here. Because I mean, I can stay for longer, but I'm sure you guys probably have other things to do.
I'm good.
Let me just say that Jerea Edwin, that super chatted $5, said there goes $5. It had nothing attached to it, so tag me and I'll ask your question. That way you didn't waste your money. Converse Contender. Just tag me, and I will ask your question. Gabriel
people
K.
keep calling me Jewish. I don't know if you see this in the chat.
I actually calmed out some guys for saying that.
Who's coming up? Like, what does this have to do with anything? Remember how we were talking about racism in America? Like, just a sign right here. The amount of racist comments in just the conversation. Think about all this shit people are talking about me in the side chat just because I'm defending black people and saying there's racism. Right? Even if I'm wrong, right? I would think, Justin, you would think that, like, in my heart, I'm trying to do the right thing. Even if I'm wrong, like 100% wrong, right? But look at the reaction we get from the audience for simply just trying to defend that there's a possibility of racism. And we get racist comments, we get bullying, we get negative name calling about me. This should show you something about America.
Yeah, so... let's try let's try and keep it to the actual topic. So people are getting timed out for that. All right, so our last super chat came in from Gabriel K. Says, Skylar, I am a reptiliophobic atheist. Raptor Jesus is offensive, but good debate.
Under his claws. So listen, Raptor Jesus loves you, and he gave up his claws for you. And you know what? You don't want to know what Jurassic Hell is like. Be in Jurassic Heaven with us. You have to listen. One more thing. I'm sorry. I just got to say this. I apologize. Listen, this is important. This is Raptor Jesus. All right. And the important thing you got to understand, folks, is Raptor Jesus can't unlock the door to your heart. You have to unlock it, because raptors don't unlock doors. So let him into your heart. Under his claws. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right.
Just like
our last question of the night, unless we get one from Jerea Edwin, who super chatted with no question. I'll still ask it if you send it and tag me in it. Unless we get one from them, our last question of the night will be from Andrew T. His second question says, also, is Justin willing to detour into a brief explanation of why schools with large percentages of blacks are underfunded, even though they have the same tax base and incomes?
Underfunded. I would have to figure out underfunded by the government, like as far as no grants given to them. That's my question. I don't know. I do not know. I can't think of a good reason yet. But I'll have to get some more specifics to come up with a good reason.
All right. So you can research that, and we did just have a super chat come in, so maybe that can serve as our last question. It is John Peterson. Says, Converse, can you please ask Justin if he knows what a hasty generalization is? Thanks for your $5.
Yeah. And see, the problem is that when you're talking about race, you're going to make generalization. Because if you're saying that white people are racist, or you're talking about racism and you refer to white people, I think we need to have the common sense that we're not talking about 100% of white people, or not even 90% of white people, but maybe a high percentage. Maybe it could be only like 5% or 2%. That's still high and maybe unique to just the white race. So when I'm talking about, black people, let's say I say black people love playing basketball, I'm talking about the high percentage of black people that love to play basketball, in comparison to other races. If I talk about black people associate themselves to being thugs, I'm talking about a high percentage of black people being gang members, or in the rap music, you find more black people with the name Thug, Young Thug, Little Thug, this and that. You don't find that as much in other races. So that's what I'm speaking to.
All right. Thanks so much for that. And with that, we're going to end the discussion there. Thanks everybody in the live chat for being here. We had over 300 people the entire time, pretty much. So that was awesome. Thanks to both of the speakers for coming on. We've got an awesome show coming up tomorrow. So definitely check that out. And as usual, keep sifting the reasonable from the unreasonable.